Hello everyone, we are Group Whatever, and our project is Intercity Traffic and Regional Economic Development, Analysis of Spatial Spillovers in Greater Bay Area in Guangdong Province. Let's crack on with a warm-up story. Imagine you are the most handsome or the prettiest person in CUHK Economics, and most of the secondary school graduates want to study economics because of you. As a result, the application for the economics program increases dramatically this year, and the department receives a lot of high-quality Year 1 students as a result. Unfortunately, you are not paid for this. In this warm-up story, you can see the idea of positive spillover, or we call it externality. And the spillover effect refers to the impact that seemingly unrelated events in one party can have on the other parties. And this impact could be positive or negative. In a warm-up story, obviously, because of your beauty, the impact is positive. And we call it externality because it's an economic term, and it refers to the cost or benefit incurred or received by a third party. But this third party has no control whatsoever on the creation of that cost or benefit. And most likely, the one who created the cost or benefit will not be punished or compensated. And similar phenomenon could be observed between nations or regions or cities. And our project investigated the spillover effect of intercity traffic on regional economic development. In other words, we want to see how intercity traffic affects the economy of different regions. We used a model called Moran's I index to do our study. This index shows the correlation in a signal among nearby locations in space, and between -1 to 1, the more positive or the closer it is to 1, it indicates a higher economic correlation between targeted regions. As you can see in table 1 on the right hand side, most of the data has an index around 0.4, which indicates positive correlation. In addition to Moran's I index, we also used accessibility index to show the accessibility of cities in terms of transportation. It is a weighted average of travel time of different vehicles between cities. The larger the index is, the less accessible that place is. As you can see in table 2, Shenzhen and Guangzhou has the lowest accessibility index because they are big cities and they have really well-developed transportation system. However, when you look at the right side of the table, Maoming and Shantou has an index over 200, with Shantou's index nearly close to 300, which means these two places are the least accessible. Here are some key factors that affect transportation efficiency. And we start with capital and labor. The capital supply and transportation sector and in places other than the transportation sector will affect. And labor participation number also affects. For example, if a place has a really high unemployment rate, then the transportation efficiency will decrease. Last but not least is the transportation infrastructure. For example, like the railway mileage and the road mileage. And these key factors determines economic growth, also transportation efficiency and development. Here are the results. Number 1, we realized that labor and capital supply, other than transportation, are still the main contributor for promoting economic growth of the Greater Bay areas of cities independently and internally. This is quite intuitive because economy, or let's say the production of an economy, is hugely dependent on labor, capital, technology, human capital, these kind of factors, rather than transportation. Transportation, however, in our second finding, we realize that transportation can still promote economic growth, but in a less extent when compared to labor and capital supply. That is because transportation has a positive externality, has a positive spillover effect on the economy. But unlike capital and labor, transportation only has an indirect effect on economic growth. Labor and supply, on the other hand, has a direct effect. And our third finding, greater importance of transportation factors in promoting regional growth, narrow the gap between Olel and Casey when talking about regional growth. And our last finding, adjacent cities and all cities with strong economic connections will have greater spillover effect to each other under efficient and accessible transportation system. In this slide, you can see the detailed results of the spatial econometric models from 2009 to 2018, but this might get a bit too technical. That's why we will go to the next slide and have a look on the future prospects. How central cities affect their neighboring cities economically, how geographical distance affect the extent of spillover effect, and is there any negative spillover effect between cities? These are interesting questions that we need to ask ourselves. Our conclusion is, number one, economic growth of an individual city depends mostly on capital and labor other than transportation. Number two, an efficient and accessible transportation system attaches greater importance on growth when referring to regional economic development. Number three, cities adjacent to each other or with strong economic links will be more likely benefited under better transportation system. This is the end of our presentation. I hope you learned something and enjoy it. Thank you.